Hello, and welcome to our webinar, Graphic Novels for All. I'm Sarah Hunter, editor of the Graphic Novels and Books for Youth sections at Booklist. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some technical details. Links to today's slide presentation and title list were included in the reminder email you received from Zoom 1 hour ago. To download them, please open that email, scroll to the bottom, and click on the links located there. You can also download the slides and title list by copying the URLs on this screen into your web browser. If you have any trouble accessing these materials, please contact us at webinars@booklistonline.com. The audience is in listen-only mode, but we welcome any questions you may have. On the bottom of your screen is a toolbar with a question for Q&A. If you have a question or need technical assistance, simply click Q&A and type your message into the box that appears. We will do our best to respond to all tech-related questions and will pass along all other questions to today's panelists so they can follow up with you after the webinar. Last but not least, Booklist offers closed captioning on all webinars. To enable or disable captions on your screen, please look for and click the live transcript icon on the toolbar mentioned earlier. From there, you can select show or hide subtitles from the menu that appears. If you choose to enable subtitles, you can adjust the size of the captions at any time by selecting subtitle settings. Today, we have the pleasure of hearing from Sarah Anderson, Director of Publishing Sales at Viz Media, Sebastian Gerner, Editor-in-Chief at TKO Media, Morgana Santilli, Sales and Marketing Coordinator at Yen Press, Ashley Kronsberg, Marketing Manager for Diamond Book Distributors, Chloe Ramos, Book Market and Library Sales Manager at Image Comics, and Mel Schuett, School and Library Marketing Manager at Quarto Kids. First, we'll hear from Sarah Anderson. Sarah is the Director of Publishing Sales at Viz Media, working with distributors and retailers in the US, Canada, the UK, Australia, and India. Take it away, Sarah.
Hi, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us today. I'm going to start off with some of our Shonen Jump titles. So next slide, please. And the next one as well, sorry. Starting off with the Shonen Jump Guide to Making Manga. This one is a fantastic guide for anybody who's ever shown any interest in how do you make manga. There's little hints and tips all the way through. And there's one of the things that I think is so interesting in this. There are interviews with some of the really, really big names. And it's like questions like, what would you wish you knew before you started? That kind of thing. So it really is a very, very good insight. There's some practical things inside as well, like how to structure your story, how to, make it as kind of compelling as possible. This is such a great title for anybody who's just either wanting to get started or trying to improve their talents. We've got the next slide shows some pages. This is obviously the Japanese edition. It won't be like this, it will be in English, but it just gives you an idea of the layout of the book as well. And the next slide, please. We have Blue Box. This is a new series. It's a sports-based manga where we have two characters. One of them is a badminton guy and the other one is a basketball girl. They're both really, really good. They kind of are trying to be national champions. But they meet, they become friends, and there may be more to it as well. So it's a kind of nice romance, similar in style to things like Nisekoi, We Never Learn, and Fly Me to the Moon. Also has kind of shades of Haikyuu. It focuses slightly less on the sport than Haikyuu, but it does still have that, the main characters trying their very best to be the very best. And the next slide shows some pages from that. It's just very, very nice, lovely, sweet, genuine story. And then the next one we have is Kayu Shirai and Pozuka Demuse, Beyond the Promised Neverland. This one is both a prequel and a sequel to The Promised Neverland. That finished its run in late 2020, but it is still one of our best-selling series. This one is kind of like, it gives you the starting story, the sort of the pilot chapter that became the series. And then there's also, what happened next? So if you ever wanted to know what happened to Emma and the rest of the gang, this will give you all of the details. The next slide has some images. So it's very, very similar. It's obviously the same creators as the main series. And so it gives you an idea of the artwork. And then we have a new series, Showa Shoten. This is from the artist of Death Note. And we've described it as the Bakuman of stand-up comedy, which makes a lot of sense if you know Bakuman, probably less sense if you don't know Bakuman. But that was a kind of, behind the scenes on two guys who wanted to be manga creators. This one is a similar kind of idea because it's really detailed about two boys at school who want to be stand-up comedians. Individually, they're not great, but when they team up together, they are fantastic. And so it's sort of like behind the scenes on the stand-up comedy circuit in Japan. Some of the jokes are very, shall we say, Japanese specific, and some of them are really clever and, they are very universal, shall we say. But yeah, it's very authentic in terms of the Japanese comedy market. And the next slide will give you an idea. This is, very similar artwork to things like Death Note, Bakuman, Platinum End, because it is by Obata. And the next one we have is in our Shoujo Beat line, and we start with My Special One. This one is a romance title where it's a kind of girl who's sworn off beautiful boys because of a bad rejection, ends up basically a boy from a famous boy band, turns up in a family restaurant. And he really likes her, but she's so cynical and doesn't want anything to do with him. So he has to really try and win her over. So it's kind of, slightly taking the famous person and the non-famous person romantic comedy trope and turning it on its head a little bit because she is so cynical, which I really like. And the next page will give you an idea of some of the artwork inside. Then we move on to our Viz signature line, and we start with Shojin X. This is from the creator of Tokyo Ghoul and Tokyo Ghoul Re, and it's about two friends, one of whom is just always seems to succeed at everything, and the other one is just never quite as good. But they're attacked one night by a superhero mutant called a Shojan, and they become Shojin themselves. For one of them, this means that they are, they don't really show any outward signs of transformation. But for the other one, he basically ends up with a beak. And so it's how do you deal with all of this? Being a super-powered creature isn't all it's cracked up to be. He's trying to hide his transformation from his family, but also there's a lot of bad things happening in the town. The next slide gives you an idea of the artwork. Tokyo Ghoul has been one of our most successful series. This is a very sort of similar concept in a lot of ways, lots of humor in here, and should do very, very nicely indeed. And then we move on to Black Paradox. This is from Junji Ito, who is a 4-time Eisner Award winner. He just won another Eisner this summer, which obviously we're very, very happy about. This one is about 4 people who are intent on killing themselves. They meet through a suicide website. And they all have, very, very different reasons for searching for the perfect death, as it were. It's, typical Junji Ito, very dark, very twisted, absolutely beautiful artwork. The next slide will give you an idea of that. And the next one in particular, that one's lovely and gory and delightful. Junji Ito is just absolutely fantastic, and everything that he does just seems to be more successful, volume after volume. And then we have another one from Junji Ito. We have Tombs, Junji Ito story collection. So this is one of Junji Ito's most recent titles. So we kind of alternate between the older titles and the more recent ones. So Black Paradox was one of his older titles. Now we're back to a newer one. And in this one, the next slide will give you it's a very, very famous image, the tongue that turns into a slug, which is possibly one of the creepiest things I think I've ever come across. In this one, we have this very kind of horrific tomb town where all of these tombstones stand in rows, and a brother and sister end up in the town, and can they even escape? So very, very creepy. And then I think we have another slide of images. So typical Junji Ito, but as I say, very beautiful, but really creepy. Then we move on to Viz Media, and we have Love's in Sight. And this one is a relationship between a tough delinquent boy and a young girl who everybody thinks is very kind of quiet and sweet. And she has a vision impairment. So of course, everybody's very, very kind of cautious of her and gentle with her. She's really tough. And so it almost takes the delinquent sweet girl idea and turns everything on its head, because actually the delinquent is very, very sweet and lovely. And she's the one who's kind of really, really tough. And then we have some images from that one. Then we move on to the next slide, Four Town for Real, a Disney Pixar Turning Red manga. I have to admit, when this was first mentioned, I was skeptical. A manga about the boy band who feature in the movie Turning Red, but isn't the main focus of the movie. I was not entirely convinced, but I have been persuaded because Four Town are amazing and they have proved incredibly popular. When we announced this, it got picked up by Variety magazine. There were then some articles in New York magazine. It's just the Four Townies, they are really crazy about this. There are a lot of people who are fans of the band. This is basically a behind the scenes, a day in the life of the band. And it's the day of the concert that appears in Turning Red. So you get to learn all about the characters. The next slide has some images showing you all the individual boy band members, as does we've got another slide as well with more images. So yeah, anything you could possibly want to know about Four Town. And then moving on to Viz Originals. So the first one we have is The Girl That Can't Get a Girlfriend. This was originally self-published as a webcomic, but it's now going to be in print. It hasn't actually finished as the webcomic, so basically the only way you can get the ending at the moment is through the manga. It's about a girl who has these crushes on other girls, but can never quite end up with a relationship. And finally she meets somebody and it's like everything is perfect. She's the best person ever, and everything seems to be going really well. Of course it doesn't, and then she has to deal with all of that. So we have some images on the next slide. And then we move on to some light novels from Shonen Jump. So some of our best-selling series, starting off with Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, The Flower of Happiness. So this is different short stories featuring the major characters from Demon Slayer, and we will have 3 of these in total. One comes out in February and the other in June. And then we have Jujutsu Kaisen, Summer of Ashes, Autumn of Dust. Again, this is just, more information about the characters from Jujutsu Kaisen, and we have the second novel coming in April. And then finally, Chainsaw Man Buddy Stories. So again, this is stories featuring the fan favorite characters. This is just going to be a one and done. So just a single volume of the Chainsaw Man Buddy Stories. And that is it. And I hope I'm still within time. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Now we'll hear from Sebastian Gerner. Sebastian is a German-born, American-raised writer and editor of comics and graphic novels. For over a decade, he has developed, produced, and creatively guided best-selling and acclaimed comic fiction for publishers including Marvel Entertainment, Image Comics, Viz Media, and Random House. Since its launch in 2018, Sebastian has served as TKO Studios editor-in-chief. Sebastian is also the writer of such comics as Skills and Scoundrels, The Devil's Red Bride, and Shirtless Bear Fighter. He lives and works in Brooklyn with his wife, who is a teacher, their son, who is a baby, and dog, who is a very good boy. Thank you for being here today, Sebastian.
Thank you very much for having me. Hello, everyone. My name is Sebastian. I'm the editor-in-chief of TKO. TKO Studios is just next month celebrating our 4-year anniversary. So if you haven't heard about us, I'm happy to present to you some of our upcoming titles and some of our backlist as well. Next slide, please. So one of the first books I'd like to start off with is that we are rolling out a new selection of deluxe hardcovers of some of our backlist titles. We're starting off with Sarah and Sentient, which is the next slide. These are very, very beautifully put together. I wish I could show them to you. We just got our shipments in. I'm hoping in future we'll have more of our back catalog will end up in what I would find these are the ultimate editions of our titles. If you're aware of these two titles, or two of our perennial bestsellers, Sarah is the based on a true story of a all-women sniper brigade in World War II on the East Front. The Soviets very often employed women snipers who were said to be more patient than men and thus more dangerous. Written by Garth Ennis, with art by Steve Epting and Elizabeth Breitweiser. I think it's some of the best work of all of theirs in very long and distinguished careers in comics. And Sentient, of course, being the first-time collaboration of Jeff Lemire and Gabriel Walta, which is a sci-fi story set on what is essentially a refugee ship moving colonists off of increasingly destroyed and uninhabitable Earth towards a colony in the stars where a terrorist attack manages to kill everyone on board except for the children, who are then raised by the ship's onboard computer Val, who was not programmed to be a mother, but is up for the challenge. It's a really, really wonderfully dark sci-fi story with a lot of heart, a lot of light. And these two hardcovers will look good on any bookshelf. And we'll go to the next slide. So these going to start showing some of the works that will be out next year, kicking it off with Witches of World War II. Written by Paul Cornell with art by a very wonderful young Italian artist named Valeria Borzo. So this is a quasi based on a true story. It's inspired by a true story. The Witches of World War II follows a coven of real life witches. Front and center, a woman named Doreen Valiente, who was one of the founders of Wicca, along with Gerald Gardner, who was the other founder of what we now know as modern Wicca. And other colorful characters from true folklore witchcraft history, like, of course, Aleister Crowley, the self-professed most evil man in the world. And these characters come together during the Nazi invasion of Europe and are essentially hired by the British Secret Service to use their powers to get some sort of edge over the Nazis, knowing full well that Adolf Hitler's second in command, Rudolf Hess, was a fervent believer in folklore and magic and was the head of the Nazi occult Thule Society. So in developing the story, we worked very closely with the Doreen Valiente Foundation. So if there are any fans or practitioners of Wicca among you, I'm hoping that you'll find that we've done our homework. And this is a very, very fun and insightful story into how witchcraft, folklore, queerness, all elements of life and human life and folklore can be used in the fight against fascism. Next slide. All of the books I'm presenting right now are going to be available in March of next year. Sacred Lamb comes to us from Tim Seeley and artist Elena Djurdjevic. This is I wish it was out right now because it's a wonderful take on the slasher genre, what you would call a meta slasher. Imagine a world, if you will, where slasher killers like Jason Voorhees and Freddy and Michael Myers are real, and when they inevitably are stopped by the survivor girl, that survivor girl, final girl, is then whisked away by the authorities, who are quite terrified of the notion that these killers always somehow find a way to come back to life, to continue their reign of terror. And they have created what is essentially a gated community, a locked away witness protection program for all these final girls, where they are out of harm's way, and more importantly, they cannot harm society by engendering these killers to come back. But of course, when our newest final girl, Kellen West, who is a YouTube celebrity who has dispatched her own slasher killer on a live stream, is brought to this town, which has existed in America since the 70s. She ultimately is the pin that draws hundreds of slashers to this town for one final standoff with what they assume to be a a lot of sitting ducks, but are actually a lot of hardened survivors. So this is a very fun romp through the history of horror film, the history of women in horror film. If anyone has read Men, Women, and Chainsaws, which is a wonderful book exploring a lot of the kind of subversive gender in these classic horror films, that this is a story that you'll enjoy a lot. And there's a lot of blood and in general gory goodness. Moving on from our TKO Rogue imprint, which is our imprint of short prose fiction, we have a new book called Free Rider by Janet Porter. This is also coming out actually just today, released today, so ready to grab. It's a psychological crime thriller set in the 1970s New York. This coming of age story of two twin sisters who just barely made it through their incredibly privileged but absolutely nightmarish upbringing, and are set to grow into a world that is no less brutal just because they are now not children anymore. But they both have basically a pathway to break out of their predicament, only they both need the other's help and neither is inclined to help the other. So a little bit of mirror split, a little bit of crime, a little bit of thriller, definitely a nail-biting read. Moving back into the world of graphic novels, next slide, we have Lonesome Dave's Savage Nights. This is one of our backlist titles, perfect for Halloween. It's available now. This is a Bram Stoker Award nominee, comes to us from Steve Niles and Salvatore Simeone with art by the wonderful Simon Kudransky. It is essentially a private detective on the hard neo-noir streets, but he's also a werewolf who is up against a crime empire who somehow can't get their head around the fact that the beast that keeps taking out their capos is in fact a werewolf. So this is a lot of fun for fans of both horror and crime noir. There's a lot to read here. And one of the reasons that I'm presenting this is that next slide, please. Next year, one of the titles, this is one of the first sequels. We're actually doing direct sequels to one of our books. So this is a fan favorite. We'll have more from our werewolf detective here as he goes up against a very cheeky, very powerful billionaire who is seeking to revitalize the city to his own dark ends. Next slide. This is another one that is perfect for the spooky time right now. Black Mass Rising by Theo Prasidas, first-time writer, and Jody Muir. I think this is the first time Jody. She's a wonderful digital painter. This is a fully painted graphic novel. The art you see on the cover is in fact the same quality throughout for over 160 pages. This is a quasi-sequel to Bram Stoker's Dracula. Takes place 1 year after Dracula's disappearance and presumed death, as the shadow of darkness once again falls over Transylvania, a land that was just barely beginning to breathe easy, when a young peasant girl and a mysterious healer join forces to uncover the secret of Dracula's disappearance and see if he is in fact truly gone. Next slide. Rounding it out, we have The Forgotten Blade by our very own publisher, Zeke Shun, with beautiful digitally painted art by Tony Pizzula. This is a really grand science fiction fantasy epic following a nameless warrior. He's actually not nameless. I don't know why I just said that. It sounded good. Wielding the titular Forgotten Blade, a mysterious weapon, who is hired by a young woman, a young mother of two children who were taken from her by the followers of this world's premier religion, church, who hires him for the ultimate quest that a warrior can be tasked to do, which is to slay the god who created this twisted world in the first place. Sounds dark. It's actually kind of a mixture of really big high fantasy, as take your pick of anything that's on streaming right now, and combining it with some really heady, larger social philosophical issues as you might find in Dune. So this is a very, very beautiful book and a great read. Next slide, I'm trying to get through here. These are all of our more mature readers' titles. One more here, The Banks, one of our earlier titles by the great Roxane Gay, art by Ming Doyle and Jordi Belair. This follows, this is a crime, a heist, and a family story about 3 generations of Black women on the south side of Chicago. 2 of them successful thieves, one of them a successful lawyer who wants nothing to do with her mother and grandmother's dark past, but has to team up with them when she is passed over for a promotion that she definitely deserved, and decides to join the family business as she is roped into a plot that has followed these women through most of their lives. So this is big heist adventure, and one of the Roxanne's biggest works in comics in terms of sales and promotion and stuff like that. Moving on to our all ages line. So these are books that are suitable, as the name infers, to all ages. Jelia by the great Juni Ba. This is his first title. Juni has since gone on. His star is definitely on the rise. He's one of the most dynamite cartoonists working today. This is a graphic novel retelling of West African folktale and mystery. It's also got a little bit of dystopic action adventure, a little bit of Dragon Ball in it. Follows the king who, with his titular jelly, who are storytellers, royal storytellers, whose job is to galvanize the king, trying to reclaim the power of his kingdom that was taken from him by a wizard who destroyed the entire world and is now locked up atop a tower. Great energy, great fun, and very, very unique. It's really, really hard to explain what it is really. But I think once you read it, you'll find that Juni is someone who is going to be around for a very good long while. And closing it out is a title that I have written, Scales and Scoundrels, with art by the wonderful Galad. This is book 1 of 2. Both are available now. This is the story of a cursed dragon princess who has been locked into the body of a regular old human as she's on search for gold and glory and hopefully a way to unlock her curse and reclaim her true dragon form. And the second book continues the story as, of course, she wanders through the world and meets different characters and finds out that for all, her curse might be bothersome, but there's some things that are worse than being trapped in the body of a plucky human. And if you like volumes 1 and 2, then I can leave you with the joyous news that I'm currently writing volume 3, and we hope to have that out, if not next year, then the year after. So that was a little bit from TKO, and I'm glad. I think I just barely made it out in under the deadline. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Sebastian. We'll now hear from Morgana Santilli. Morgana is the sales and marketing coordinator at Yen Press. She is a former comic shop manager and buyer and always particularly loved helping readers find their new favorite series. Other than reading manga, Morgana enjoys drinking lots of tea, snuggling with her 2 black cats, and collecting too many books for her toddler's personal library. Same. Take it away, Morgana.
Thanks so much. Hi, everybody. My name is Morgana. Nice to see you. I'm from Yen Press. Some of you may know us from the manga that we publish. We've been publishing for about 15 years now. But I want to start off by telling you a little bit about a new effort of ours. If you could go to the next slide, please. So we are starting up Eyes Press. This is an imprint dedicated to Korean comics, specifically ones that have been webtoons in the past, webcomics, super, super popular stories, stuff like The World After the Fall. This is created by the team behind Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, which many people have probably heard of. These books in our Eyes Press line are going to be full color books. So readers who are fans of the vertical scrolling full color webtoons will have a physical book that is laid out like a book instead of, to be read on a screen, to be read in hand. So a little bit about The World After the Fall. Once again, this is by the same team as Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. In this story, a mysterious tower appears in the skies, and these heroes known as walkers are asked to clear the 100 floors of the tower in order to save the world. And our hero reaches the 100th floor, and that's kind of when the story actually begins. And that's where the first volume ends, but there's more. It's more complicated than he realized. This comic is very popular, has over 6 million views and 500,000 subscribers on Webtoon as of July of this past year. The date here says it's available today. That has actually changed. This will be out November 8th, so in a couple weeks. It is appropriate for ages 13 and up. Once again, full color, and yeah, definitely something to look forward to. Next slide, please. And this is another one from Eyes Press for us. Villains Are Destined to Die. This, fairly confident saying is probably the most popular of the Eyes Press titles we have announced. This takes place kind of a common premise right now, where you have a character who's kind of reincarnated into a game. In this case, our protagonist is reincarnated as the main villain of a romance game, a dating simulator. But the villain's path is much harder than the heroine's path, and she has to kind of make everybody fall in love with her, otherwise she's going to die. So it's very high stakes romance, a lot of fun, romantic comedy. This is another one, boasts over 4.4 million views, over 157,000 subscribers on Tapas, which is another popular webtoon app. It's popular with readers who like other Korean comics, stuff that we publish, like Why Raeliana Ended Up at the Duke's Mansion, or The Abandoned Empress, stuff that we've been putting out under our Yen Press line. And now we're, kind of complementing that with stuff with Eyes Press. Here, this also says it's a 10/25 release. Unfortunately, this one has also been moved out to November 8th, so a couple weeks, but you can order it now. This is appropriate for ages 13 and up, grades 8th to 17th. Again, full color. Arcs for Villains Are Destined to Die and The World After the Fall, which I showed you before, are available on Edelweiss right now. Next slide, please. Without getting into too much detail about these, we have a few more coming for Eyes Press at the end of November. The Remarried Empress and Tomb Raider King will be out November 22nd. The Remarried Empress is a beautiful, dramatic, historical, political romance. There's lots of drama. It's very juicy. Again, you can see that from the cover, beautiful, beautiful art. Tomb Raider King is an adventure story that involves time travel and ancient relics. Really great for with Percy Jackson fans, things like that. Next slide, please. Coming in December, right before Christmas, we have My Gently Raised Beast and the Boxer. These are coming out December 13th. My Gently Raised Beast is a kind of fantasy story about a young girl who finds a cat who is more than he seems. He is actually a demon in disguise. There's a bit of a romance there, lots of magic, beautiful artwork again. And The Boxer is the only one of our Eyes Press books so far that's not a fantasy, straight up fantasy story. It is more of a sports story about a young man who doesn't really have a whole lot of ambition or motivation, but he's an extremely skilled athlete and really excellent boxer. So really great for fans of any sports series. Arcs of Remarried Empress and Tomb Raider King are also available on Edelweiss right now. Don't have arcs of these two yet, but hopefully soon we will. Next slide, please. All right, now going back to our manga. This is one that I'm super excited about. It's called Embrace Your Size, My Own Body Positivity. This is actually a nonfiction essay manga. The author discusses her own journey with an eating disorder, the recovery from that eating disorder, and learning to accept her body as it is. She's learning to kind of dress herself in a way that makes her feel confident. And along the way, she is also talking about her friends and other people who are experiencing similar body image issues. This is a really great read for anybody who obviously loves kind of essay manga, like some of the stuff we've published. Secretly, I've been suffering about being sexless, or I don't know how to give birth. Or for instance, my lesbian experience with loneliness, which I'm sure a lot of people are very familiar with. This is appropriate for ages 13 and up, though I suspect maybe slightly older teens would be more interested. Though, of course, if you have a student or a patron who is interested in body positivity or in fashion, I think this would be a great choice for them. And this will be out toward the end of November. Next slide, please. Shy. So Shy tells the story about a superhero in a world where every country on Earth is represented by a superhero. So for instance, England's superhero is a rock star who puts on benefit concerts for the good of the nation, right? So every single country has their own superhero who's doing things to kind of help their nation. And Japan has Shy, and as the title and her name implies, she is kind of timid, not very self-confident. She's worried about messing up. She does kind of go to save the day and it doesn't go quite as she planned, and she's kind of trashed for it on social media. She goes into hiding for a while, and finally she kind of learns to come out of her shell, and tries again to save the day, and learns to be confident in her abilities and in who she is. So this is a really interesting story because it talks about Shy and her development, but also kind of builds this interesting world where, how did these people come to get their powers, and how did they organize to decide like this committee of people who are going to represent their countries, right? Obviously, I'm sure a lot of people are thinking about My Hero Academia. I think this would be a great kind of read-alike for anybody who's interested in My Hero. This is coming out in December 13th, and is appropriate for ages 13 and up. Next slide, please. Honey Lemon Soda. This is a shoujo manga title. I'm going to talk a little bit about shoujo. Some of you may be familiar, but for those who are not, it is manga which is created with a young female audience in mind, so teenage girls essentially. This is a pretty popular demographic for manga, but I just want to kind of give you a sense of, some of you may be familiar with Fruits Basket, which is a title we publish. Back in the 2000s, this was a very popular title, super popular with Tokyopop's printing. And we reprinted it in collector's editions a handful of years ago, and it is more popular than ever. So if you have context for how big Fruits Basket was at that time, you can kind of see it's doing way more than it ever did before, and titles like it. So titles intended with that young female audience in mind. In that vein, we have something like Honey Lemon Soda, which is a romance about a young woman who has become kind of closed off. She's kind of put up a whole bunch of walls. She's been bullied. She's very cynical. She doesn't think that she can, associate with people. And she meets this boy who's a bit of a delinquent, bit of a tough guy. But something about him kind of clicks with her, and they form a friendship and kind of learn about each other, and they both grow as people. So a standard kind of romance, high school romance, fun stuff. This is coming out in January 17th, and is appropriate for ages 13 and up. Next slide, please. Last but not least, Oshinoko. This is a really interesting manga. It was running on the Manga Plus app. It's a free app that ran Spy Family and kind of helped Spy Family gain a lot of traction ahead of time before the print volumes came out. So Oshinoko is a story about a doctor who is treating one of his favorite musical idols. And in the process of kind of treating her, he dies suddenly and unexpectedly and mysteriously, and is reincarnated as one of this idol's children. He has a twin sister. And you kind of, the story kind of is told through the eyes of these children as they experience the intense, kind of dark underbelly of the Japanese entertainment industry. So it is kind of a fun reincarnation story, but also looks very deeply at entertainment and art, and like explores the complex nature of being an idol. So we are expecting really good things out of this. It was very, very popular on the Manga Plus app. We've gotten a lot of excitement from readers. This is coming out in January also, the 17th, and is appropriate for ages 16 and up. Next slide, please. That's all from me. Please, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We are on TikTok as well. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, morgana.santilli@yenpress.com. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Morgana. Next, we'll hear from Ashley Kronsberg. Ashley is the marketing manager for Diamond Book Distributors and the editor of Diamond Bookshelf magazine. She has been with Diamond for over 7 years and oversees all lifecycle marketing for our Diamond's book market client publishers. Along with creating and executing marketing plans for key titles, Ashley curates, edits, and publishes Diamond Bookshelf magazine, a triannual magazine providing resources to librarians and educators about comics and graphic novels. The floor is yours, Ashley.
Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm going to be going over our fall graphic novel releases and give you a little sneak peek at spring 2023. Next slide, please. First, if you aren't already, make sure you're following Diamond Bookshelf. This is our educator and library resource. So we post about weekly and our weekly and triannual magazine. We do lesson plans, graphic novel reviews, interviews with creators, feature bestseller lists, and have exclusive digital review copies. You can scan any of the QR codes to follow us, and you can scan any of the QR codes on our slides to see our full catalog of 2022 with the sneak peek at spring. Next slide, please. In case you missed it, we had several bestsellers this spring and summer, but two that really spoke out to us were The Boys, The Oversized Omnibus, and Summertime Rendering, which is now streaming with an anime. Next slide. First up is No Kidding. This is a slice of life-esque modern feminist graphic novel focusing on a real societal issue. It is an all-female creative team focusing on two women with two destinies and taking a humorous take on the idea of women having their own choice over their bodies. Next slide so that you guys can see some internals. This focuses on two main protagonists, Jane and Lucy, where Jane doesn't want to be a mother and Lucy unexpectedly becomes one, even though she never planned on being a mother. The story focuses on both women refusing political correctness and their biological clock. Next slide. Next, we have Abby Curled Up on a Ball. This is a high interest and humorous tone tale that is kid-friendly and appropriate for ages 5 and up. Abby is a webcomic featured on the Instagram page at Abby Comics with over 140K followers. Next slide for some internals. Each page is a little short comic strip featuring the everyday woes of Abby as she's learning to tackle everything childhood throws at her. Next slide. Next up, we have Side Effects. This is a young adult graphic novel coming from Aftershock's young adult line, Seismic Press. It focuses on a female college student struggling with mental health. When she starts taking medicine, it gives her superpowers. But this is much more than just a superhero story. Next slide for internals. Side Effects is a pro-medication regimen that takes on real issues on how to make healthy choices. There is a romance element that features LGBTQ couples and really shows how to balance your work, life, and mental health all through Hannah's exploration through college. Next, we have Hakim's Odyssey. This is the end of a journey, but the beginning of a new life. Book 3 is the final book in the trilogy of Hakim's Odyssey. In this one, after being rescued from the Mediterranean, Hakim and his son reach European soil full of hope. But before they can get to France, they face a new series of challenges, including overcrowded detention centers, run-ins with border police, and a persistent xenophobia that follows them almost everywhere they go. Next slide. This is a heartwarming and heart-wrenching final installment of the trilogy and shows the exploration between Macedonia and south of France. All of Hakim's Odyssey is based on true events and lays bare the tremendous efforts of the policies of wealthy countries and the attitudes of their people have on the lives of those who are displaced and disposed. Next, we have Elle's Volume 1, The New Girl. This is a story about Elle, who every time she has 5 personalities living inside of her, and every time her hair changes, she's in a new personality. This is Elle's quest for identity. and is genre agnostic as it spans across several different genres, including sci-fi, slice of life, and humor. Next slide. It has gorgeous Pixar-esque art and features popular creators Aveline Stark, and has several relatable moments for young adult readers, including interactions with their schoolmates, awkwardness of first love, and the terrors that accompany giving a presentation in front of the whole class, and more. It has a deep emotional payoff, and book 2 is already slated to come out in 2024. Next. And the last title for 2022 is 50 Years of Animated Lupin III. This is based on the extremely popular Lupin III series. Next slide for internals. It is beautifully packaged and features a comprehensive list of every single episode, background scenes, and much more, things that you just don't see today for Lupin III. Next. In case you missed, these are for our spring 2023. We have Fetch Book 1 coming out, which features a Greek mythological journey to bringing back your dog from after he's passed away, and Marry Me a Little, which is a graphic memoir featuring what it's like to get married as a gay couple right after the law was turned allowing gay marriage. Next. Thank you. That's everything from me. If you guys would like any copies of books or any digital review copies, you can email me at kashley@diamondcomics.com.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Next, we'll hear from Chloe Ramos. Chloe is the book market and library sales manager at Image Comics, where they provide resources to librarians and educators looking to utilize comics in their institutions, not only as items to be acquired, but also as keys to facilitate increased patron engagement. The floor is yours, Chloe.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for your time. Today, I'll be sharing highlights from our fall 2022 and winter 2023 lineup. Next slide, please. First up, we have Everyday Hero Machine Boy from Irma Nivola and Tri Vong. We have mentioned this in a few of our title presentations over the course of this year, and I just cannot stop harping on how good this book is. Next slide, please. When Machine Boy crash lands to Earth, he has no memories and no purpose and leaves a wake of destruction in his path. But with the help of Karate Grandpa, his heart is opened for the first time. Now he's working to overwrite his programming and become a hero, whether it's retrieving a school principal's lost key, rescuing a cat stuck up a tree, or saving the city from an evil entity built on world domination. Next slide, please. This book has literally everything you could ever want. If you haven't read it yet, I can list off a few of the pros. That would be Karate Grandpas, like I mentioned, Karate Grandmas, a lot of spaghetti, 2 hot dog costumes, superpowered boy bands, and a whole lot of heart. The title is rated middle grade for readers 8 and up, and it's perfect for fans of Mech Cadet U and Astro Boy. Next slide. Moving on, we have It's Lonely at the Center of the Earth by cartoonist Zoe Thorogood. Next slide. This honest and at times brutal memoir covers 6 months of the creator's life as mounting mental health challenges threaten to unravel her burgeoning career and her very existence. Next slide. It's crafted in a variety of illustration styles with inventive layouts, journeys into meta-narrative, and surreal introspection. The book is not only deeply personal, but also an artistic tour de force that cements Thorogood's place as a transformative voice in the comics industry. It is rated T+ for readers 16 and up, and it's perfect for fans of the impending blindness of Billy Scott and the loneliness of the long-distance cartoonist. Also, a side note, for sensitive readers, the title does contain frank discussions of self-harm. Next slide. Our next title is Radiant Red, Volume 1, and this comes to us from Cherish Chen, Miquel Muerto, and David Lafuente. The newest addition to Kyle Higgins' massive verse expands the narrative universe through the exploits of Satomi Sone and her alter ego, Radiant Red. Next up. Next, thank you. Satomi is trying to balance her Jekyll and Hyde existence. By day, she's a middle school teacher, and by night, a superpowered bank robbing heavy hitter. She's already in over her head, but things have taken a turn for the worse as a mysterious gang leader pressures her deeper into the life, and a dogged reporter circles ever closer to exposing her. This title is rated T+, for readers 16 and up, and is perfect for fans of Radiant Black and Power Rangers. Next. Moving on, we have Rogues Gallery Volume 1 from Hannah Rose May, Declan Shalvey, and Justin Mason. Next. The Red Rogue is a pop culture icon and comic book hero beloved by all. Beleaguered actress Maisie Wade, the actress charged with bringing her to life over 8 seasons on a successful television show, not quite so beloved. Next. In fact, the fandom has become downright murderous, and they're about to bring their Twitter rage to her doorstep. Can Maisie survive the night? Find out in this action drama ripped straight from Comics YouTube's worst comments sections. The title is rated M for readers 18 and up and is perfect for fans of John Wick and The Boys. Next. Our penultimate title is the second book in the Friday series. It's a post-YA mystery masterpiece from industry legends Ed Brubaker and Marcos Martin. In this volume, the smartest boy in the world, now all grown up, has been murdered, and it's up to his partner, Friday Fitzhugh, to solve the case. But that's easier said than done. Friday will have to master her grief and untangle a mystery unlike any other without the help of her slain best friend. Can she do it now that his death has been ruled an accident, the evidence is gone, and the culprits are a little more eldritch than your average criminal? The book is rated 18 and up, and it's perfect for fans of the Hardy Boys and the works of H.P. Lovecraft. Next. Our final title is Public Domain, Volume 1, from the funniest man in the funny books business, Chip Zdarsky. Next. Our protagonist is the son of comic book legend Sid Dallas. Dallas helped create The Domain, a character that's currently making its publisher millions upon millions of dollars. It is a pop culture juggernaut. It's ubiquitous. It's basically the MCU. Next. But much like so many of the creators of his generation, The Domain doesn't actually belong to him. Or does it? Zdarsky has another hit on his hands. Next. Blending comedy, drama, and industry secrets into comics gold. Oh, sorry. I think I made you move too soon. The title is rated M for readers 18 and up, and it's perfect for fans of sex criminals and Batman and people who love just a little inside baseball. I highly recommend this title. Next. Thank you guys again for your time. To request PDFs for any of the titles highlighted today, please email me at the address provided in this slide. And remember that you can also find sample content for the titles mentioned today and everything that we have on Edelweiss, including select first issues available for free on imagecomics.com. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, Chloe. Finally, we'll hear from Mel Schuett. Mel is the school and library marketing manager at Quarto Kids. She is a children's book enthusiast with an MA in children's literature, an MFA in writing for children, and a BA in studio art. In her free time, she runs the blog Let's Talk Picture Books and shares her home with 3 black cats and 1 tiny black dog. Take it away, Mel.
Thanks so much. My name is Mel Schuett, and I work at the Quarto Group as the school and library marketing manager. Hopefully some of you have already heard the good word, but back in June, Quarto published our inaugural set of books from the first ever line of manga-style graphic novels in partnership with Saturday AM. And by the end of this year, we will have started 7 new series with some second books coming this fall and many, many more coming next year. Saturday AM's graphic novels are truly for all. Our current title list has books that fall into the shonen, shoujo, and seinen demographics, and they are available for a wide range of audience levels, from 10 plus to 16 plus. Let's take a look at some of the titles we have coming out this fall, starting with, next please, Apple Black by Odunze Oguogo, aka White Manga, rated 13 plus T for teen. In Apple Black Volume 1, we learn that Sano is the Trinity, a savior believed to be the one who can save the world. But like many heroes, he must choose between a path of light and a path of dark. In Book 2, Sano continues his quest to uncover and protect the secrets behind his father's research on the immense power of the Apple Black. Sano seeks to find those responsible for his loss and walk a path not toward forgiveness and not toward anger, but toward forgiveness and closure. Next, please. Author Adunze Oguogo, aka White Manga, has over 500,000 followers on social media where he talks about his experiences growing up in Nigeria and the manga that inspired his stories. Apple Black is being favorably reviewed by critics and trades alike who agree that the series is inspiring and promises an adrenaline rush for manga fans. The second volume comes out in November, and the third volume arrives next May, with a fourth volume coming late 2023. Next, please. Also coming out with a second volume this November is the series Hammer by Jay Oden, rated 10+, Y for youth. Stud is an adventurous 14-year-old boy who can turn his hands into hammers. Book 2 picks up with Stud still stuck in a strange water world where he promises to aid his new friend, Dan the detective, and Diane. The ocean police are canvassing everywhere to no avail, but when Diane's communicator fails, everyone worries about foul play. Can Stud and Dan save Diane from the murderous gang who's kidnapped her? Next, please. Creator Jay Oden also has a significant following on social media, with over 100,000 fans who follow his short, quippy how-to-draw videos. The trades are also buzzing about Jay's books, calling attention to how action-packed and climatic each one is. The second volume comes out in November, the third comes out next March, and the fourth volume will be available late 2023. Next, please. Next up is my personal favorite, Saigami by Seni, rated 13+, T for teen. Loner and bookaholic Ayumi finds herself magically transported to the world of Astrea, where she learns that she may be a Saigami. For the first time in her life, Ayumi's potential is limitless, but not all is right in Astrea, and Ayumi will have to face her own demons to get to the bottom of this and determine who she wants to be next. Next, please. Author-illustrator Seni is a European LGBTQ creator born and raised in Peak, Hungary. The trades are as excited about this book as I am, calling it a welcoming entry point to the genre and praising the fantastical world that Seni has created with her characters. Next, please. This fall, we also have 2 graphic novels authored by Saturday AM founder Frederick L. Jones. The massively multiplayer world of ghosts, illustrated by New Zealand cartoonist Oscar Fong, is rated 13+, T for teen, and follows Nile, whose long-lost mother sends him a mysterious device that also just so happens to belong to a super secret group of people who can summon video game avatars called ghosts to do battle, with real-life consequences. Yellow Stringer, 16+, OT for older teen, is illustrated by Haitian native Jeffrey John Lewis, who is about promising Columbia Journalism School graduate Naomi and her partner ex-cop Tony, who will stop at nothing to expose the truth about the supernatural, monstrous world that lives among us, despite the danger they constantly find themselves in. Next, please. These are just a few of the titles that Saturday AM has lined up. We have many more that started this year, and we have many more coming next year, including Clock Striker. The cover of that book went viral a few months ago when White Manga shared it on Twitter, and you can scan the QR code here on the screen to read the first chapter of Clock Striker before it publishes in February. Next, please. The last thing I want to mention is that each of these creators is available for virtual events. Please visit the link on the screen to sign up for free manga writing workshops, diverse character drawing events, panel presentations, and more. Next, please. And that's all I've got for now. My face and information are on the screen there, so please reach out with any questions and follow us on socials to watch us unfold this exciting new program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mel, and a big thank you to all of today's wonderful presenters. Tomorrow, all attendees will receive an email containing links to today's slide presentation, title list, certificate of completion, and video recording. For more about Booklist webinars, be sure to visit www.booklistonline.com/webinars, where you can view archives of past webinars and register for upcoming ones like those you see here. Now you can share Booklist love with everyone connected to your school district, library system, or higher learning institution. Booklist Online Unlimited offers just that, unlimited simultaneous access to 30 years worth of review and article archives, plus digital editions of Booklist, book links, Booklist's guide to graphic novels and libraries, and Booklist Reader. For pricing and other questions, visit www.booklistonline.com/subscribe. And good news, you can now deliver Booklist's unparalleled recommendations directly to patrons. Share Booklist Reader digitally, and now it is appearing in print with our January issue. Learn more at our website or check for more information about ordering your copies now. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, and one more huge thank you to all our panelists and to our sponsors, Viz Media, TKO Studios, Yen Press, Diamond Book Distributors, Image Comics, and Quarto Kids. This concludes today's webinar. See you next time.